You know that feeling. When you're really trying to do your absolute best work, but the demands just seem endless.
Hmm.
The clock is always ticking relentlessly, and you just find yourself wishing you had some kind of, I don't know, a secret blueprint.
Yeah, like an insider's guide.
Exactly. That hidden knowledge, that wisdom that could just transform the chaos into something calmer, make
Hmm.
everything flow just a bit smoother, maybe a bit less taxing.
We've all been there, I think, in one way or another.
Well, today's deep dive is precisely about uncovering those kinds of strategic blueprints. And these aren't, abstract theories floating around.
No, not at all.
They are practical, real-world strategies, the kind that make a profound, a really tangible difference in any demanding job, especially those focused on high-stakes care.
Right.
We've actually been given some incredibly insightful material. It comes from a resource called CNA Shift Hacks, Smarter Care, Less Stress, which was originally from the Diamond School of Nursing CNA podcast.
A solid source.
And just for clarity, CNA stands for Certified Nursing Assistant. It's a role that really epitomizes that blend of dedication, skill, and, let's face it, relentless pressure.
Absolutely. Frontline, high-touch work.
Now, while these hacks are specifically, tailored for healthcare pros, their underlying principles, they resonate across pretty much any high-pressure environment where efficiency, organization, and human connection are really key.
That's the fascinating part, isn't it? The universality.
It is. This isn't just theory. It feels like the kind of wisdom that usually gets passed down, maybe in hushed tones, between seasoned professionals.
Yeah, the stuff you wish you knew on day one.
Exactly. So our mission today is to thoroughly unpack these shift hacks.
Yeah.
We want to explore how they can not only boost efficiency and hopefully significantly reduce stress for caregivers,
Which is critical.
but also how they could profoundly elevate the quality of care they provide. We're really looking for those aha moments, the ones that don't just streamline tasks, but maybe fundamentally transform how you approach your work.
A shift in perspective, almost.
Precisely. And let's be really clear here. This isn't about cutting corners. Absolutely not.
No, it's the opposite, really.
It's about working smarter. It's about staying impeccably organized and, crucially, preserving your sanity, right? And your capacity for compassionate care, even when things get chaotic and the stakes are high.
Sort of like cultivating calm in the middle of the storm.
Yeah, building a more resilient, more effective professional self.
You know, what's truly fascinating here, as you lay it out, is observing how these seemingly minor practical tips, things that might feel small in isolation, when you apply them consistently, strategically, they can collectively weave together into this really powerful system of support.
A system, yeah.
And this system, it doesn't just benefit the individual caregiver, it actually ripples outward, positively impacting the entire care ecosystem.
So patients, families, the whole team.
Exactly. It speaks to a really profound idea that efficiency isn't just about speed or, shaving seconds off a task.
Right. It's deeper than that.
It is. It's about the thoughtful, deliberate allocation of your energy, your attention, your resources. And ultimately, that leads to superior outcomes for everyone involved, the provider, the patient, even their families.
That really reframes efficiency, doesn't it? Not just doing things fast, but doing the right things thoughtfully.
Precisely. And this raises, I think, an important question for all of us, really, whatever field we're in.
Yeah.
In any demanding profession, how much of our sustained success and our well-being, let's not forget that, and our overall effectiveness, how much does it depend not just on sheer hard work, putting in the hours,
The grind, yeah.
but on these strategic, almost invisible practices, these things that might seem minor if you look at them one by one, but when you apply them consistently, day in, day out, they compound. They build into something truly transformative over time. They create this foundation of quiet competence.
Quiet competence. I like that. It's not flashy, but it's solid. Okay, so let's dive into this first set of hacks then. These ones seem to collectively champion the immense power of proactive planning and, well, meticulous organization.
Laying the groundwork.
Exactly. It feels like meticulously building your fortress before the battle even begins, making sure you have this rock-solid foundation, well-stocked, well-prepared before the inevitable chaos of a busy shift descends.
Makes sense. Setting yourself up for success.
So the very first hack we're going to unpack is called the 5-minute power plan.
Okay.
The core idea here, straight from the source, it sounds deceptively simple. Just dedicate 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, before your shift officially kicks off.
Right before you dive in.
Yeah. Use that time to quickly review your patient assignments, maybe do a brief check-in with the charge nurse, get any immediate updates or critical info, and then, crucially, mentally map out your priorities for the shift.
Sort of a mental walkthrough.
Exactly. And the why behind this seemingly small investment of time, it's actually profoundly impactful. This quick mental game plan acts like your shield against, wasted steps, missed tasks, when things inevitably escalate and get hectic later on.
Preventing that reactive scrambling.
Totally. And how do you actually do it? It's pretty straightforward. Glance at your patient list. Immediately note who needs vitals first. Identify anyone who might be a higher fall risk. Make a quick mental note of who needs extra help or specific timing, say, with meals.
Prioritizing right off the bat.
It really reminds me of like a pre-flight checklist for pilots.
Good analogy.
Or maybe the warm-up routine an athlete goes through before a big game. You wouldn't just jump into the cockpit of a 747 and, start flipping switches randomly, would you?
Definitely not.
Or sprint onto the field without stretching and mentally preparing. This brief mental exercise, it dramatically shifts your whole approach. It takes you from being purely reactive to being, well, powerfully proactive.
So you're anticipating, not just responding.
Exactly. Instead of being blindsided by the first urgent thing that pops up, you've already thought about potential needs, you've identified key vulnerabilities, maybe charted a preliminary course of action in your head.
Getting ahead of the curve.
Yeah. It's about gaining that critical mental edge, that feeling of being sort of slightly ahead even before the shift truly begins. It builds this quiet confidence, I think.
That's an excellent analogy, the checklist, because it really highlights how this isn't just about saving time, it's about cognitive preparedness.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, from a cognitive science perspective, this 5-minute power plan is a masterful act of what we might call pre-computation or schema creation.
Schema creation.
Yeah, you are, in essence, activating and strengthening the relevant neural pathways before the real pressure hits. Think of a cognitive schema as a kind of mental blueprint, right? A prepackaged set of reactions and anticipations that your brain has already prepared.
Okay, like a mental shortcut.
Sort of. So when you encounter a patient who, for instance, you've already noted is a fall risk, that information isn't just a random fact floating around. It's already primed in your mind, linked to a set of pre-planned actions or just a heightened level of awareness for that person.
Got it. So it reduces the mental load in the moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It drastically reduces the cognitive load during those high-demand moments. This frees up your limited working memory for the really critical stuff, real-time problem-solving, nuanced observation, compassionate interaction, rather than spending that energy on just basic recall of static information.
It's about preserving your mental energy for where it's truly needed. Makes sense.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about being faster at the start. It's about fostering long-term resilience. It helps prevent decision fatigue.
Ah, yes. Decision fatigue is real.
It is. And that fatigue can lead to errors, to burnout, and just generally reduce job satisfaction over time. So this little 5-minute strategy, it's a micro strategy that really fuels macro performance.
Wow. Okay, so contrast that. Imagine a CNA who doesn't do this.
Right. Okay, so imagine someone who skips this 5-minute ritual. They might walk onto the unit, immediately feel overwhelmed by the buzz and the demands, get pulled in 5 different directions at once.
Yep, sounds familiar.
And find themselves constantly chasing their tail. Maybe they forget a crucial task, or they have to backtrack repeatedly because they didn't plan their route efficiently. Chaos, essentially.
Total chaos.
Now, compare that to the CNA who consistently takes those 5 minutes. They enter the exact same chaotic environment, but they walk in with this quiet inner sense of direction. They're calmly prioritizing tasks in their head, they're anticipating needs, they're moving with purpose. The difference in their experience, their stress levels, and ultimately the quality of care they can provide despite identical external pressures would be absolutely striking.
From chaos to a quiet sense of control.
Just by front-loading that small amount of cognitive effort. And of course, this principle, it extends far beyond healthcare, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I could see that.
Whether you're a project manager preparing for a complex launch, a parent managing a crazy household schedule with multiple appointments, or even a student getting ready for a tough exam, taking those few minutes to mentally map out the terrain first, that can be the difference between feeling completely overwhelmed and feeling genuinely in control.
It really embodies that old wisdom, doesn't it? A stitch in time saves 9.
Exactly. It's the strategic pause that enables effective action.
That's such a brilliant point about front-loading the cognitive effort and building that mental schema. It also sounds like it gives you a sense of agency, rather than just feeling like you're constantly reacting to things thrown at you.
That's a key psychological benefit, yes. A sense of control.
But I can also imagine maybe it feeling like just one more thing to do when you're already feeling pressed for time. How do you convince someone to actually invest that upfront time when they feel like they just don't have it?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's where understanding let's call it the compounding interest of time comes in. Those 5 minutes, they aren't lost time. They're actually an investment that saves you far more time and energy later down the line.
Okay, so you get it back plus interest.
Exactly. When people truly grasp that this isn't an additional task, but it's actually a preventative measure against future chaos and wasted effort, the motivation starts to shift. It's about reframing it. Not another thing to do, but maybe the smartest thing to do that ultimately frees you up later.
Okay, reframing it as an investment.
The initial mental hurdle is real, no doubt, but the payoff, it's exponential, not just in efficiency, but in a really profound reduction of daily stress.
Okay. And speaking of preparedness and setting yourself up, our next hack takes that idea from the mental realm, the planning, squarely into the physical world.
Ah, the tangible stuff.
Yeah, it's called Organize Your Cart Like a Pro. Our source tells us this means meticulously keeping your supply tray or your cart stocked, and critically, grouped by task.
Grouped by task, okay.
So thinking about having, say, all your wound care items together, your vitals equipment in another spot, linens in their own zone, distinct, easily accessible areas.
That makes intuitive sense.
And the why behind this. It's brilliantly simple, but incredibly impactful. It means no more frantic scrambling for wipes while a patient is waiting patiently, or searching for the right size gloves when every single second counts.
Avoiding those frustrating little delays.
Exactly. This kind of physical efficiency translates directly into more precious time available for actual patient care and, importantly, interaction. And the how to use it is equally practical. Use small bins, pouches, maybe even drawer dividers. One for PPE, personal protective equipment, another for hygiene supplies, and maybe a third for frequently used items like medical tape or gauze.
Systematizing the physical space.
Yeah. And here's where it gets really compelling for me. The idea that the physical environment matters just as much, maybe even more sometimes, than the mental one we just discussed.
The interaction between the two.
This might seem like such a basic, almost mundane tip, organize your cart, but physical organization is so often overlooked, yet it is absolutely crucial for a seamless workflow, especially in these fast-paced environments where every second counts and, patient comfort is paramount.
It really is foundational.
When you're under pressure, the absolute last thing you want to be doing is wasting precious moments searching for a roll of tape or the right size glove. It just completely disrupts your flow, it adds mental stress, and honestly, it can even subtly diminish a patient's confidence in your readiness.
Absolutely. And what's truly fascinating here is how organizing your physical space translates directly into greater mental clarity for you, the caregiver, and crucially, it enhances patient satisfaction and trust.
How so? Tell me more about that link.
Well, we can think about it as a powerful application of the concept of minimizing friction in your work processes.
Minimizing friction.
Every second you spend searching for a supply is friction. It disrupts your rhythm, it adds an unnecessary layer of mental stress, and it takes away from that direct, attentive patient interaction.
Right, your focus shifts from the person to the stuff.
Exactly. When everything has its designated place, you can move through your tasks much more fluidly, almost on autopilot for the logistical parts, right? Which then allows your full attention, your full cognitive resources, to be entirely on the patient's needs and their emotional state.
So the organization frees up mental space.
Precisely. The psychological impact of a well-organized workspace is immense. It reduces stress because you're not constantly battling your environment. It enhances focus because your brain isn't multitasking by trying to locate items while also thinking about the care task. And undeniably, it conveys professionalism and competence to the patient. They see you're prepared.
Okay, let's paint a picture. Imagine a contrast scenario.
Okay, consider this. A new CNA is trying to change a dressing on a patient, maybe someone with a fresh wound. Mid-procedure, they suddenly realize the necessary clean gauze isn't on the cart. It's down the hall in the supply room.
Oh no, stressful.
Right. The patient waits, likely uncomfortably. The CNA feels flustered, maybe embarrassed. the entire process gets delayed, and maybe it's even less sterile because of the interruption.
Yeah, not ideal.
Now, contrast that with a cart where everything needed for wound care is neatly organized in a specific bin, immediately accessible right there.
Yeah.
The care is swift, it's efficient, it's sterile. The patient feels more confident, more comfortable.
Huge difference.
It's not just about saving a minute or two, it's about the quality and the seamlessness of that interaction. It fosters a sense of calm and competence for everyone involved.
And this principle, this place for everything idea, it applies everywhere, doesn't it?
Oh, universally. Think of a chef's mise en place.
Right. Everything prepped and ready.
Exactly. All ingredients prepped, measured, organized before the cooking even begins. That allows for that smooth, almost balletic culinary flow. Or think about a seasoned mechanic's toolbox. Every wrench, every socket has its precise, familiar place, enabling quick, accurate repairs without searching.
Or an artist's studio.
Even an artist's studio,
Ugh.
materials intuitively arranged to facilitate creative expression without the friction of hunting for the right brush or color. The timeless principle of a place for everything and everything in its place, it's really a cornerstone of efficiency and mastery in literally any domain you can think of.
That minimizing friction concept really resonates. And it leads perfectly into our third crucial planning hack, which also deals with having things ready. The pocket cheat sheet.
Ah, the portable brain.
Kind of. The core information here is to keep a tiny, easily accessible notebook or maybe just a folded piece of paper with key, frequently referenced information right on you.
What kind of info?
It could be things like normal vital sign ranges, broken down by age group, or specific facility codes for emergencies or common situations. Maybe even quick, step-by-step instructions for operating tricky or seldom used equipment.
Things you need quickly but maybe don't use every single day?
Exactly. And the why is that having that quick, immediate reference translates directly to fewer mistakes, faster decision-making in the moment, and significantly more confidence, especially when things get stressful.
Reducing that, what was that again? Moment.
Totally. And the how to use it is as simple as folding up a small list and maybe slipping it into your badge holder or just tucking it into a uniform pocket. It effectively becomes this mini personalized survival guide.
Always within reach.
So what does this really mean for daily practice? It's about intelligently externalizing your memory, right? Effectively offloading that cognitive burden from your working brain so you can dedicate your full mental capacity to the patient, to observation, to critical thinking, rather than struggling to recall a specific number or a complex procedure code.
Using tools smartly.
Yeah. In these high-stakes environments where information overload is just a constant challenge, relying on a cheat sheet isn't a sign of weakness or, a lack of knowledge. It's actually a profound sign of intelligent workflow design and, frankly, self-awareness.
Knowing your limits and planning for them.
You're consciously deciding what critical static information you don't need to constantly burden your brain with trying to remember, thereby freeing up that precious mental space for the things that really matter: empathy, nuanced observation, direct, responsive, patient interaction.
This is a beautiful and highly effective example of what psychologists call cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading. Okay, explain that.
Sure. Our short-term memory, or our working memory, it's incredibly limited, especially when we're under stress or multitasking or just experiencing information overload, which is pretty much the definition of a busy healthcare shift, right? So when you're managing multiple patients, each with unique needs, specific vital sign parameters to watch, potentially complex medical histories, trying to instantly recall the precise normal ranges for each age group or a code for equipment you haven't used in weeks. That's just a recipe for error, for anxiety, and it's a significant drain on your mental resources.
They can feel your brain straining.
Exactly. By having a readily accessible external tool like this pocket cheat sheet, you essentially bypass the need for that effortful real-time recall. This not only drastically reduces potential error rates, but it also vastly improves your decision-making speed.
And confidence, you mentioned.
Yes, and perhaps most importantly, it significantly boosts confidence. When you know you have that immediate, reliable reference right at your fingertips, you can approach tasks with much greater assurance, rather than second-guessing yourself or pausing awkwardly to consult a distant manual or having to interrupt a busy colleague.
That makes sense. It removes the doubt.
It does. And this raises, I think, an important question for all of us living in this incredibly information-rich era. In a world of constant information streams, overwhelming data, How do we strategically choose what we actually need to commit to our biological memory versus what we can simply reference efficiently?
That's a big question.
It is. We don't need to memorize the entire internet, obviously, but we absolutely need efficient, reliable ways to access the right information at the right time. This isn't a new idea either. It's the timeless wisdom behind all reference guides, isn't it?
Like what?
Well, think about a chef's detailed cookbook or a programmer's syntax guide, an electrician's wiring diagram, even a pilot's emergency procedures
That's
checklist.
critical info, readily available.
Exactly. Imagine a high-pressure situation. A patient's vitals are suddenly fluctuating. The CNA needs to quickly determine if those readings are within a safe and expected range for that specific patient's age and maybe their underlying condition.
Okay, stressful moment.
Instead of frantically trying to remember the exact parameters or maybe having to log into a computer system which takes time, a quick glance at their pocket cheat sheet provides the immediate, accurate answer. This allows them to act swiftly and decisively.
Wow. That quick glance prevents a potential mistake, saves precious time.
And in healthcare, that saved time can be absolutely critical for the patient's well-being and safety. It reduces that internal monologue of doubt, is that right? Should I double check? And replaces it with confident, informed action.
Okay, these planning hacks. The 5-minute plan, the organized cart, the cheat sheet, they all set a really strong foundation. Now let's transition from that meticulous preparation into dynamic action.
Okay, into the shift itself.
Yeah. These next hacks are all about optimizing your movements and your tasks once you're fully immersed, in the thick of the shift, making sure that every step, every moment truly counts.
Maximizing efficiency in motion.
Exactly. The first one in this section is called the 2-task rule.
Intriguing name.
Isn't it? The core information here is remarkably straightforward. Make it a conscious habit to never leave a patient's room or their immediate area without accomplishing at least 2 things.
Okay, always bundle tasks.
Yeah. For example, if you're in there taking vitals, also take that moment to refill their water pitcher or maybe adjust their bed position for comfort.
Simple, but makes sense.
And the why behind this is incredibly powerful, especially cumulatively over a shift. It saves a significant amount of time. It conserves your physical energy. Think of all those steps saved. And it drastically reduces those exhausting back and forth trips that just add up and up throughout the day.
Eliminating wasted movement.
Exactly. And the how to use it gives a great practical example. Maybe while you're helping a resident to the bathroom, you can also take that opportunity to quickly check their brief for wetness and then adjust their bed alarm settings on your way out the door.
Combining related actions naturally.
This, to me, feels like pure genius when it comes to maximizing efficiency. It's about intelligent task stacking, right? Or what you might call batching or task clustering in your micro movements.
Little efficiencies adding up.
It's such an incredibly simple concept to grasp, but the cumulative effect over a busy, demanding shift is nothing short of enormous. Every single time you enter or exit a patient's room, you're consciously looking for that opportunity to knock out an additional small related task that's probably already on your mental radar anyway.
Being intentional about every trip.
Yeah, it's about thinking efficiently about your physical presence and just leveraging every moment you're already in a particular space.
Absolutely. This hack is a really clear, elegant application of what are known as lean manufacturing principles, but beautifully translated and adapted into the unique context of healthcare.
Lean principles in care.
Yes. In lean methodology, a core objective is the rigorous elimination of waste. And in a healthcare setting, wasted motion, wasted waiting time, even something called overprocessing, like doing more than is strictly necessary at one particular point, these are huge culprits that drain efficiency and resources.
Things that don't add value to the patient.
Precisely. By consciously implementing this 2-task rule, you're actively reducing that unnecessary movement, you're optimizing your workflow, which directly translates to greater productivity and vitally more dedicated, focused time available for direct patient care.
More time for the important stuff.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about optimizing the flow of work and eliminating those unnecessary steps. This has a direct impact on the patient experience and the overall productivity of the unit.
Can you quantify that? Like, how much time could this really save?
Just consider how many steps, how many minutes a CNA might save over an entire shift, or even across a full week, if they consistently apply this rule. Instead of leaving a room right after taking vitals and then having to return 5 minutes later because they suddenly remembered the patient's water cup was empty.
Which happens all the time.
Right. They get both of those necessary tasks done in one swift, efficient visit. This compounds incredibly quickly. We could be talking about saving hours over the course of a week.
Hours? That's significant.
It is. Hours that can then be spent on more complex care needs, maybe having a deeper, more meaningful conversation with a patient, or simply having a much-needed moment to breathe and reset yourself, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that time is precious. And this applies outside of work, too. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
Think about applying this to everyday life. Running multiple errands in one single trip, right? Combining a grocery run with dropping off dry cleaning and hitting the post office.
Batching errands, yeah.
Or think about in the kitchen. Preparing dinner by chopping all the vegetables at once before you even start cooking, rather than chopping carrots, then stopping, then chopping onions, then stopping.
The mise en place idea again.
Exactly. It's about leveraging your presence and your effort in any given space or time block to its maximum potential. Smart use of resources.
That's such a clear explanation of how these seemingly small shifts in approach can compound into massive time and energy savings.
Okay.
And speaking of capturing information efficiently, our next hack, chart as you go, directly addresses that universal struggle we all have with memory and recall, especially when we're under pressure.
Oh, the charting challenge, yes.
Right. The source suggests jotting down quick, maybe unofficial notes on a small notepad, or even ingeniously on a spare glove wrapper immediately after providing care.
Right, then and there.
Yeah. Then you can log the official, detailed information into the electronic health record or the paper chart later when you actually have dedicated charting time.
Okay, so capture now, formalize later.
Exactly. Why? Well, to prevent forgotten details, which is huge for accuracy, to improve that accuracy, and maybe just as importantly, to eliminate that dreaded end-of-shift charting panic. We've all felt that.
Trying to remember everything from hours ago. Yeah, stressful.
So for example, right after you transfer a patient from bed to chair, you might quickly scribble down something like 8:30 a.m. assisted to chair, no dizziness. Just the key facts.
Quick, salient points.
This hack is really all about capturing that critical information right at the source, in real time, when the details are absolutely fresh and accurate in your mind.
Before memory starts to fade or distort.
It's a beautifully simple, almost low-tech solution to what is actually a very high-stakes problem in healthcare, inaccurate or incomplete documentation.
Yeah, the implications can be serious.
Imagine trying to remember the precise specifics of every single patient interaction, every vital sign reading, every assist with mobility, every fluid intake amount across an entire 8 or 12-hour shift, especially if you've been interrupted multiple times, you've dealt with several critical events.
It's virtually impossible to recall everything perfectly.
It really is. This chart-as-you-go method ensures accuracy, it reduces the cognitive burden of trying to hold all that information in your head, and it significantly cuts down on a major source of end-of-shift stress and potential error.
What's truly fascinating here again is how such a simple, low-tech solution, a notepad, a glove wrapper, effectively mitigates this high-stakes problem, the loss of critical data in demanding environments.
It seems almost too simple.
But it speaks directly to the psychology of memory. Specifically, the rapid decay of what we call short-term memory, the information we hold temporarily in our minds. That decay is even faster when our attention is fragmented, which happens constantly in a busy care setting.
Constantly shifting focus.
Right. When you're constantly shifting focus from one patient to another, or from doing a physical task to thinking about the next one, those fleeting details, the exact time, the specific measurement, the patient's exact words can very easily slip away.
Gone in an instant.
Immediate notation vastly improves accuracy and dramatically reduces stress later because you're not relying on what is, frankly, a flawed biological recall system, especially under pressure.
Okay, so what's the alternative? Trying to remember it all at the end.
The alternative is trying to reconstruct this complex narrative of your shift from a jumble of fragmented memories, often when you're already tired and stressed at the very end of that demanding shift. That process is a known recipe for anxiety. It's a recipe for potential inaccuracies in documentation.
Which, as you said, can have serious implications.
Absolutely. And it's frankly just a lot of wasted time trying to piece it all back together. Compare the panic and uncertainty of trying to remember, okay, did Mrs. Henderson have her blood pressure taken at 10 a.m. or was it 10:30? And what was that exact reading again? Versus calmly transcribing a quick note you made earlier that says 10 a.m., BP 120/70, sitting, no complaints.
Ah, the difference is huge. Calm versus panic.
The difference in efficiency, accuracy, and just your own peace of mind is monumental. And again, this principle is vital in countless fields, isn't it?
Like what?
Think about journalism reporters scribbling quotes and observations immediately in their notebooks. Law enforcement officers meticulously documenting every detail at a crime scene right away. Scientific research where precise, immediate data logging is absolutely paramount to the integrity of the experiments.
Capture it now, process it later.
Exactly. The digital equivalent today might be quick voice notes on your phone or using rapid entry features and apps, but the core idea remains constant and powerful. Capture it accurately at the source.
That makes so much sense. It feels like it adds a layer of professionalism and reliability, too, knowing you have that accurate record to fall back on.
Definitely.
And that leads really well into our next hack, which also involves grouping tasks, but this time with a different and I think incredibly important primary focus. It's called the magic of cluster care.
Magic, eh? Sounds promising.
It does. The core idea from the source is to intentionally group multiple care tasks. Things like maybe giving baths, doing patient turns or repositioning, and assisting with toileting, and do them during natural downtimes. For example, perhaps immediately following medication passes when things might be a little quieter.
Bundling bigger care activities.
Yeah. And the why here is absolutely crucial, and it shifts the focus. It primarily minimizes sleep interruptions for patients.
Ah, patient-centered. I like that.
Which is so vital for their recovery. And secondarily, it also maximizes your efficiency as a caregiver. The how to use it example is perfect. If you need to go in to reposition a patient anyway, consciously take that opportunity to also check their brief for wetness and maybe offer them some water at the same time, combining those care needs into one interaction.
Right, addressing multiple needs while you're there.
Here's where it gets really compelling. For me, this isn't just about the CNA's efficiency, although it certainly helps with managing a demanding workload, no doubt.
Sure, that's a benefit.
But more profoundly, it directly impacts the patient's fundamental well-being and, critically, their restorative rest. In any healthcare setting, quality sleep is not a luxury, is it?
Absolutely not. It's essential for healing.
It is a critical component of healing, of recovery, and just overall mental and physical health. Constant interruptions for care tasks, even necessary ones, can be incredibly detrimental to a patient's natural sleep cycle and their overall comfort, especially when they're already feeling vulnerable.
Fragmented sleep is terrible for recovery.
So this hack, cluster care, it demonstrates a really deep understanding of patient needs. It prioritizes their holistic comfort, not just the efficient completion of a task checklist.
This point is incredibly important because it really shifts the focus, as you said, from purely task-oriented efficiency, how quickly can I get my list done, to a much more holistic, patient-centric approach to care.
Right, the patient comes first.
While the caregiver undeniably gains efficiency by batching these tasks, the profound and primary benefit is actually for the patient. Minimizing those sleep disturbances, reducing the sheer frequency of interruptions, that fosters a crucial sense of peace, predictability, and maybe even a little bit of control for patients who are often in these vulnerable states and have very little agency over their immediate environment.
That sense of peace is so important.
It directly contributes to a superior overall patient experience and fundamentally supports their healing process. It lets the body do its work.
So this raises an interesting question then.
Which is?
How do we effectively balance that need for caregiver efficiency, because the demands are real, with the paramount need for patient comfort and recovery? They can sometimes seem at odds.
That's the crucial balancing act, isn't it? And this hack, cluster care, provides a clear and elegant answer. You make efficiency serve the patient's well-being as its ultimate goal.
Okay. Efficiency in service of the patient.
Exactly. Imagine a patient who is constantly being roused from sleep for small individual tasks. First, a blanket adjustment, then later a water refill, then a brief check, then something else. Just imagine how disruptive that is.
Exhausting just thinking about it.
Now, compare that to a patient who experiences fewer, but perhaps more comprehensive care moments scheduled at more opportune times, allowing for longer stretches of uninterrupted rest. The difference in their rest quality, their mood, their capacity for recovery, maybe even their overall sense of dignity, it could be absolutely substantial.
A huge impact on their experience.
And again, this principle applies broadly, doesn't it? Think about any service industry where the customer or client experience is key. Optimizing delivery routes, for instance, isn't just about saving gas for the company. It's about minimizing customer wait times.
Or scheduling appointments efficiently.
Right. Scheduling appointments efficiently to reduce how long clients have to sit in a waiting room. There's an often overlooked ethical dimension to efficiency here. It's about using resources, including time and human energy, in a way that provides the greatest possible benefit to those being served, recognizing their needs, their vulnerability, their comfort.
That's a really powerful way to think about efficiency ethically. Okay, so we've talked planning, we've talked in-shift task efficiency. Now let's shift gears again.
Okay, where are we going now?
Beyond the realm of tasks and timings. Because a huge, arguably the largest part of caregiving and really any human-centric work is fundamentally about relationships.
The people part, the crucial part.
Exactly. These next hacks delve deeply into that critical area. They focus on how we interact with others, especially when those interactions might be challenging or emotionally charged or just plain difficult.
Navigating the interpersonal dynamics, yes.
Let's unpack this first one because I think it's a really powerful tool. Script your tough conversations.
Ooh, scripting. Interesting.
Yeah. The core information from our source tells us to proactively prepare polite but firm responses for potentially difficult situations or challenging interactions.
Having something ready in your back pocket.
Exactly. For instance, having a phrase ready like, "I understand you're frustrated. Let me get the nurse to help you address that specific concern." You've thought about it beforehand.
Okay, polite, firm, and redirecting.
And the why is immensely practical, but also deeply personal. It significantly reduces your own stress when you're dealing with upset residents or maybe their anxious family members. And it helps you maintain your professionalism, even when you might feel flustered.
Staying grounded in a tough moment.
And the how to use it suggests actively practicing phrases. Things like, "I'll make sure your mom gets her pain meds on time, I promise. Let me double check that with the nurse right now." Or maybe, "I really appreciate you sharing your concern with me. I'm going to make sure the whole team is aware of that immediately."
Pre-planning your responses.
This is all about proactive, intelligent communication, isn't it? Having your lines ready, essentially, when the pressure is unequivocally on. It's like having a social script or a pre-formulated response prepared for those high-tension, emotionally charged moments.
So you're not just reacting off the cuff.
Right. Instead of fumbling for words or reacting instinctively, maybe allowing your own emotions, frustration, defensiveness to take over, you have this pre-thought-out professional response ready to go. It can de-escalate a situation, it can redirect the conversation effectively, and it can steer things towards a solution or the next appropriate step.
Managing your internal state while managing the interaction.
Yeah, it's a remarkable way to manage your own internal stress while still providing empathetic, competent, and consistent care, even when it's really hard.
You know, what's truly fascinating here is the psychological shift this hack facilitates. As you said, it moves you from a potentially reactive, often purely emotional response.
Which rarely helps.
It's exactly to a thoughtful, pre-planned, and much more strategic interaction. When we're faced with an upset individual, our natural fight or flight response can easily kick in. It makes it incredibly difficult to think clearly, articulate calmly, or respond constructively in that moment.
Your brain just goes offline sometimes.
It really can feel like that. By having a scripted response ready, you essentially bypass that immediate, often unhelpful emotional reaction. Now, this isn't about being insincere or robotic, let's be clear.
No, it has to feel authentic.
It does. It's about being prepared to embody professionalism and empathy precisely when it's most challenging to do so. And these scripts are often most effective when they include those empathy-first statements, like you mentioned. "I understand you're frustrated," or "I hear your concern."
Acknowledging their feeling first.
Yes. That immediately acknowledges the other person's feelings, validates their experience, and can really disarm tension right away. This strategy helps you maintain professionalism, and it helps redirect the conversation towards a solution or the appropriate next step, rather than getting caught in this fruitless, escalating cycle of emotion or blame.
Can you give an example, like a before and after?
Sure. Imagine a scenario. A family member is extremely anxious, maybe quite demanding about their loved one's care. Perhaps they're even raising their voice. Without a prepared response, the CNA might feel overwhelmed, maybe defensive, maybe even feel personally attacked. That could lead to a strained, unproductive, possibly escalating interaction.
Yeah, I can picture that easily.
But with a phrase ready, something like, I hear your concern and I absolutely want to make sure it's addressed. I'll get the nurse to come speak with you right away. The CNA remains composed. They validate the family's feelings without necessarily agreeing to accusations, and they direct them to the person who can best help, all while maintaining their own emotional equilibrium and their professional boundaries.
Calm, controlled, and helpful.
Exactly. And this strategy, it's incredibly valuable in any profession that involves customer service or conflict resolution within a team, or even just navigating difficult conversations with family members in your personal life. It is quite literally emotional intelligence in action. It transforms potential conflict into a pathway for resolution.
That's a powerful tool, seriously. Not just for caregivers, but, like you said, for anyone in a public-facing role where you encounter heightened emotions. It's about being deliberate, not just reactive.
Deliberate and prepared.
Okay. And building on that theme of interpersonal connection, our next hack is befriend the hardstick residents. Now, hardstick usually refers to veins, but here it means patients who are difficult to interact with.
Ah, the challenging personalities or behaviors.
Exactly. The source advises us to actively build rapport with patients who might be, say, combative or particularly anxious or maybe just resistant to care. And to do this intentionally, especially early in your shift or your first interaction.
Investing in the relationship up front.
Yeah, and it can involve simple yet potentially profound gestures, offering a genuine smile, consistently using their preferred name, or even remembering and bringing them their favorite blanket or some other small comfort item.
Little things that you see them as a person.
Precisely. And the why here is incredibly important and deeply humane. Building that foundation of trust makes care not only easier but significantly safer for everyone involved, for the patient and for the caregiver.
Safety through connection. Interesting.
And the how to use it example is lovely. Imagine saying something like, Mr. Johnson, I know you don't particularly like having your blood pressure checked. I get it. How about we do it right after your coffee this morning, maybe when you're feeling a bit more settled?
Offering choice and acknowledging their feelings.
So what does this all really mean in the broader context of human interactions,
You're right.
especially in care? To me, it's a profound testament to the transformative power of human connection and individualized empathy, even, or maybe especially, in the most challenging care situations. It's about consciously making the effort to see the person first, not just the task you need to complete or the medical condition they have. These aren't just patients in beds. They are complex individuals with fears, preferences, long life histories, and an innate, fundamental desire to be treated with dignity and respect, particularly when they're feeling most vulnerable.
Honoring their humanity.
Yeah. Those small, consistent gestures of personalized care, like remembering they like the blinds open, or knowing their favorite radio station, or adjusting a routine slightly to accommodate a comfort, they can break down immense barriers and build this invaluable bridge of trust. It really shifts the dynamic away from what might feel like a power struggle. You need to let me do this, towards more of a cooperative partnership. Let's figure out how we can do this together.
That shift is crucial, from compliance to cooperation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about acknowledging and actively honoring that fundamental human need for dignity, for respect, for connection. And that need is dramatically amplified when an individual is in a vulnerable state. Maybe they're ill, maybe they're experiencing a significant loss of control over their life and body.
Their world shrinks, and those interactions become huge.
In a clinical setting, trust and psychological safety are not just nice-to-haves. They're not just pleasantries. They are critically important for effective, for safe, and for truly therapeutic care.
Foundational elements, really.
A patient who feels seen, who feels respected, who feels psychologically safe with you is far more likely to cooperate with necessary care. This directly reduces resistance, which in turn minimizes the potential for injury for both the patient and the caregiver, and it just creates a much more peaceful, less stressful care environment for everyone.
So connection leads to safety and better outcomes.
Absolutely. What might seem like a minor relational gesture, remembering a preference, offering a simple choice, taking an extra minute to listen, can actually profoundly reduce a patient's anxiety, significantly improve their cooperation with necessary procedures, and lead to demonstrably safer and more positive outcomes for everyone involved.
Can you give an example of that transformation?
Okay, think about a patient who consistently resists care. Maybe they lash out verbally, maybe they become physically agitated, leading to these really stressful, prolonged, and potentially unsafe interactions every time someone tries to help them. Perhaps they've had negative experiences in the past. Maybe they feel a profound loss of control in their current situation, or they're just scared.
A common challenge.
Now, consider a CNA who intentionally takes the time, maybe on the first day, to say something simple like, "Good morning, Mrs. Davis. I remember you mentioned yesterday how much you love to watch the birds, so I made sure to open the blinds wide for you this morning." Or maybe, "Mr. Lee, I know you often prefer classical music while you eat your breakfast, so I went ahead and put it on quietly for you."
Acknowledging their individuality.
This CNA is doing so much more than just being polite. They're actively acknowledging the patient's individuality, they're demonstrating profound respect, and they are consciously, deliberately establishing a human connection beyond the required tasks. Over time, and it might take time, these small, consistent, authentic gestures can literally transform what was a combative, stressful interaction into a cooperative, maybe even a comforting one.
Building trust bit by bit.
Which makes the essential care far less physically and emotionally draining for the CNA and infinitely more therapeutic and dignified for the patient. It really underscores the universal importance of building genuine rapport in any profession that involves human interaction, whether it's teaching kids, making a sale, managing a team, or providing public service.
These are often called the soft skills.
But they're actually the hard skills.
They really are. Incredibly hard to master sometimes, but utterly invaluable for sustained success and, frankly, for your own well-being in the role.
That's a fantastic point, the hard, soft skills. Okay, finally, these last two hacks. They feel like they bring everything we've discussed full circle. They focus not just on the immediate tasks and interactions of the shift, but on your continuous growth as a professional and, critically, on sustaining yourself, your energy, your compassion, your well-being in what is undeniably a demanding and often emotionally draining role.
Looking at the long game and self-preservation.
Yes. The first one in this concluding section is a classic pedagogical principle, really, a cornerstone of effective learning. But it's amazing how powerfully it applies to the real-world dynamic environment of caregiving. It's see one, do one, teach one.
The classic medical training mantra.
Exactly. The core information here is that when you learn and master a new skill or a procedure, you should make a conscious effort to teach it to a new CNA or maybe a less experienced colleague as soon as you feel competently able to do so.
Paying it forward while reinforcing your own learning.
Precisely. Why? Because it serves this dual, incredibly powerful purpose. It profoundly reinforces your own knowledge and understanding, really making it stick in your brain, and it simultaneously builds invaluable teamwork and fosters a culture of shared expertise on the unit.
Learning by teaching, it's very effective.
And the how to use it is practical and collaborative. Say, after you've thoroughly mastered a complex new wound dressing technique, you might approach your coworker and ask, "Hey, I just got really comfortable with this new dressing. Want me to walk you through it next time we have to do it together? I can show you the little tricks I figured out."
Mentorship in action.
This isn't just about altruism, though. As you said, it certainly fosters that spirit. It's about truly solidifying your own learning by actively helping others learn.
Explain that mechanism. How does teaching solidify learning?
When you have to articulate a process step by step, when you have to explain the whys behind each decision you make, and especially when you have to respond to thoughtful questions from a learner, it forces you to understand the material at a much deeper, more nuanced level than just performing it yourself by rote.
You have to organize it differently in your head.
Exactly. This process inevitably highlights any subtle gaps or maybe areas of fuzzy understanding in your own comprehension that you might not have noticed otherwise. It actively makes the knowledge truly stick, converting what might have been just rote memory into genuine mastery. Plus, as we said, it unequivocally fosters a really positive, supportive, and collaborative team environment, which is absolutely vital in high-stress settings like healthcare.
It raises an important question, doesn't it? How can we deliberately embed this kind of active learning and robust knowledge transfer into the everyday fabric of professional development, moving beyond just formal, scheduled training sessions?
Making it part of the daily culture.
Yes. Because the learning by teaching phenomenon is incredibly well researched in cognitive science. When you prepare to teach something, your brain doesn't just recall facts passively. It actively organizes the information differently. It forces you to create clearer mental models, more robust internal frameworks for that knowledge.
You have to synthesize it.
You're forced to synthesize, clarify, and often discover nuances or connections you hadn't explicitly realized before. This process deepens your own understanding and, crucially, identifies any weak points or areas of uncertainty in your knowledge that might otherwise go unnoticed until until you're in a high-pressure situation where that gap matters.
And for the learner.
Well, for a new CNA, having someone who's just recently mastered the skill, walk them through it, explaining it from their direct recent experience, that can be far less intimidating and often much more effective than just reading a dense manual or watching a single impersonal demonstration video.
More relatable, maybe.
Exactly. It creates a direct mentorship link, it builds critical team cohesion, and it fosters this sustainable culture of continuous improvement within the unit. People feel supported in their learning.
Can you illustrate that? The teacher learning something.
Sure. Imagine a scenario where a CNA has just learned, say, how to use a new type of patient lift equipment. They might feel pretty confident performing the transfer solo, but when they have to actively teach it to a new colleague explaining why certain straps go here, the precise body mechanics involved for safety, troubleshooting common issues like patient anxiety, they gain a much more robust, interconnected understanding of the entire procedure. They might even realize a tricky detail about weight distribution or a potential safety pitfall they hadn't fully grasped themselves, making them even more proficient and adaptable in the future.
The act of explaining clarifies it for them, too.
Precisely. This see one, do one, teach one model is so widely used across various high-stakes fields medicine like surgical residency, aviation training, military operations, precisely because of its proven effectiveness in building deep competence and resilience under pressure. It's invaluable for onboarding new employees effectively, for robust knowledge management within dynamic teams, and ultimately for achieving personal mastery in any complex domain.
Okay. That brings us to our final hack. And this one circles right back to a critical aspect of well-being, but this time with an intentional, proactive focus squarely on the individual caregiver's emotional and mental resilience.
The self-care piece. Essential.
It really is. It's called the 60-second reset.
Just 1 minute.
Just 1 minute. The core information here is exquisitely simple. Between tough moments, especially right after a particularly stressful or maybe emotionally draining interaction, take a deliberate 60 seconds. Just pause. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Maybe wash your hands, which is often a natural ritual in healthcare anyway, and consciously recenter yourself.
A mini mental break.
Exactly. And the why behind this seemingly brief act is profoundly significant. It actively prevents the insidious creep of burnout, of emotional fatigue, of compassion fatigue. By doing this, you help ensure your care remains consistently compassionate and effective throughout your shifts, not just at the beginning.
Maintaining your capacity to care.
And the how to use it is concise and actionable. After a stressful incident, if possible, just step out of the immediate environment for a moment, sip some water, take those deep breaths, and maybe quietly whisper a mental cue to yourself. Something simple like next or reset or okay.
A conscious transition.
Here's where it gets really important. I think this hack is about protecting yourself. In a field like caregiving, which is so intensely focused on caring for others, on constantly pouring out empathy and energy,
It's easy to forget yourself.
it is incredibly easy to neglect your own well-being. Caregivers are relentlessly pouring themselves out, physically and emotionally. And without intentional moments for replenishment, for conscious self-regulation, that well can run dangerously dry.
Leading to burnout.
Exactly. That depletion leads directly to emotional fatigue, to compassion burnout, and ultimately to a diminished capacity to provide that high-quality, patient-centered care we've been talking about. This hack, this simple 60-second reset, is a tiny, powerful, and absolutely essential act of self-preservation and sustained professional efficacy.
What's profoundly fascinating here is the explicit acknowledgement that self-care in this context isn't a luxury. It's not a bonus you get if you have extra time.
Right, it's not optional.
It is a fundamental, non-negotiable component of sustainable, high-quality care, especially in these high-stress environments. Micro breaks and intentional self-regulation are absolutely critical for maintaining your mental and emotional equilibrium throughout a challenging day.
Can you break down the benefits of that minute, physiologically, psychologically?
Sure, think about the physiological benefits. Just taking a few slow, deep breaths can physically lower your heart rate, reduce your blood pressure, and calm your autonomic nervous system's stress response. Washing your hands can be a symbolic, almost ritualistic act. It cleanses not just physical grime, but can feel like it washes away some of the emotional residue from a difficult interaction.
A symbolic cleansing.
And the psychological benefits are huge too. The simple act of whispering that mental cue next or reset is a powerful cognitive reframe. It consciously signals to your brain that the previous stressful event is concluded, and you are now intentionally shifting your focus and your energy forward.
Creating a mental boundary.
Exactly. These aren't just breaks in the traditional sense of stopping work, they are vital acts of emotional and mental hygiene. They actively prevent the accumulation of chronic stress and the onset of that emotional fatigue or compassion burnout we mentioned. Without these deliberate resets, the emotional weight of difficult moments can compound rapidly throughout the shift,
Snowballing.
leading to cynicism, maybe detachment, a reduced capacity for empathy, and potentially even poorer decision-making as you get more drained.
Okay, paint the picture again.
Uh.
With and without the reset.
All right. Imagine a CNA who has just dealt with a particularly combative patient, or maybe received an unfair outburst from a distressed family member. Without taking a deliberate reset moment, they might unconsciously carry that emotional tension, that frustrated energy, that residual stress right into the very next patient's room.
Yeah, that emotional leakage.
It subtly impacts the quality of their care, the tone of their voice, the nature of their interactions with the next person who deserves their full present attention. However, by taking that mindful 60 seconds, maybe stepping into the hallway, taking those few deep breaths, perhaps splashing some cool water on their face, and consciously resetting their mental state, they can actively prevent that negative emotional spiral.
Interrupt the cycle.
Yes. They can return to their next care task with renewed focus, a clearer perspective, and crucially, a restored capacity for genuine compassion. This highlights a universal need, really, for stress management and mental resilience in any demanding job. It shows the often overlooked but critical role of small, intentional rituals in helping us process difficult experiences and allowing us to move forward with renewed capacity and purpose.
Wow. Okay, so we've just completed a really comprehensive deep dive into these incredibly practical, yet, as you've shown, profoundly impactful shift hacks.
Mm-hmm. A lot packed in there.
From that foundational 5-minute power plan, that really sets the stage for a proactive shift. Through the practical efficiencies like organizing your cart and the 2-task rule, moving into those crucial interpersonal strategies like scripting tough conversations and befriending hard-stick residents.
Covering tasks, flow, and people.
And then finally, landing on those essential self-sustaining practices of see one, do one, teach one, and just now, the 60-second reset. What truly ties them all together, I think, is this profound unifying insight you highlighted earlier. Working smarter isn't about cutting corners. It's not just about moving faster.
No, it's much deeper.
It's about intelligently optimizing your capacity, your physical energy, your mental focus, your emotional resilience to give your absolute best consistently and compassionately shift after shift. It's about meticulously creating these robust systems, both mental and physical.
Systems that support you.
Exactly. Systems that not only support you in a demanding role, but ultimately lead to significantly better outcomes for those you serve, and crucially for your own long-term well-being and your professional longevity.
Yeah.
Staying in the game, basically.
Sustainability, it's key.
So now, for you, our dedicated listener, we really encourage you to take a moment and reflect on what resonated most strongly with you today from this discussion.
What stood out?
Perhaps it's the idea of proactively preparing for that big meeting tomorrow with your own version of a 5-minute power plan. Or maybe it's the thought of meticulously organizing your workspace, whether it's a desk or a workbench like a professional chef prepping their station. Or maybe it's simply committing to taking that strategic minute, that 60-second reset after your next challenging interaction.
Applying it to your own context.
Yeah. What small, actionable hack from today's deep dive could you realistically try integrating into your own professional or even your personal life, regardless of what field you're in? Just pick one to start.
And this raises, I think, a final important question for you, the listener, to consider as you go about your day, maybe mulling over these insights.
Okay, a final thought.
How much more effective, how much more resilient, and maybe how much more truly fulfilled could you be if you intentionally sought out, adopted, and perhaps even innovated your own unique hacks for the specific daily challenges you face?
Creating your own personal toolkit.
Exactly. What small strategic adjustments applied consistently over time could fundamentally transform your approach, allowing you to not just survive the demands, but to actually thrive with deeper purpose and maybe less stress in your own demanding world.
That's a powerful challenge.
Because ultimately, the deepest dive we can ever really take is into how we can continuously improve, adapt, and support ourselves and others, making every interaction and every moment count, hopefully, for the better.